Good morning, friends. Welcome to episode 61 of the Make Saints podcast. I'm Drew Downs, and this one is called More Leaders. Now, before we begin, I just want to make sure that I wish you one last time a Merry Christmas. As I record it, we're still a couple of days away from the end of the Christmas season. Epiphany is this weekend. It's still Christmas where I'm at, so I want to wish you a Merry Christmas. A happy new year. And speaking of New Year's, those of you who are waiting and anticipating my annual reminder of why resolutions suck and why we suck at them, can anticipate that coming a little bit later, maybe next week, right about the time we fail at our first set of resolutions. That something else is really kind of the moment for me, and so I want to share this one first, and it's about leadership. And to begin with, I want to name something kind of weird, a weird analogy. It's not perfect, but it's something that really kind of made sense to me when I was thinking about our moment. It's an interesting analogy, and it's something I read, I don't even know where and how long ago, but there was this weird thing that anthropologists have discovered in human history throughout the centuries, looking at different times, and times of great scarcity when life has been rotten for people, or there's few resources, and opportunities are non-existent. In those moments in human history, more girls are born. And then in times of great abundance, more boys are born. Now, this is weird. It's a weird thing to observe. And again, I don't know how true it is, but this was this weird thing about history and a weird thing about us. And so when we think about it at the sort of very micro level, when we think about the instance of an individual giving birth at that level, that makes zero sense. Like, the concept that this is happening makes zero sense at the individual level, at the where one person is. It's weird. But when we think of it at the sort of macro evolutionary level, and we look at how things flow and how the world works, and we think of it in that way, and we're like, of course it makes sense that more girls will be born because more girls are needed to sort of maintain the population, that the people at large need more girls to be born. It's needed. And then when times of abundance, we actually need to slow down population growth, in part because we don't have as many people dying, right? So we need to slow it down so more boys are born. Now we're not talking like 9 out of 10. We're not talking like extreme levels. We're talking about 45%, 45, 55 rather than 9 out of 10, but sort of sense of those shifting at the macro level, it makes sense. Whereas at the micro level, we're in the midst of biology and humanity, and it doesn't make any sense. This image for me describes the difference in how organizations function, how we're functioning in our world now, right? At a time when leadership is scarce, when few of us know where to look, or we're looking everywhere for help, for someone to say something, right? It's why that sort of famous idea of waiting for Superman, right? Someone to come along and save us when we're feeling an absence of leadership. That's, of course, when we need more leaders. We don't need one leader, we need more leaders, because we need more voices who can speak and inspire us to make the things that need to be made. And so they're more important to us than managers. Now, this idea comes from reading Seth Godin's The Song of Significance, his most recent book. And it's very clear, it's very important to recognize that this is not like a universal thing. This is not like Leadership 101 that explains leadership in all things. This is really much about the moment, about a moment like now when institutions don't hold the salvation, and we don't know where to go, and we're confused, and we need help. So, to get into this, what is the difference that he's naming? That he's naming the difference between managers and leaders. And Seth has been talking about this for ages, right? And so managers, what are managers? But they're the ones who ensure that a well-functioning system can run smoothly. So they're very skilled at troubleshooting systems, how things are going, people, handling individuals, handling employees, right? This is where that sort of paradigm that we've all been trained under for the last 70 years of managers and being managed, of being a good, dutiful worker in a system, at will employments that you have employers who are skilled at telling you what to do, and you are skilled at being told what to do. Like that entire framework of the world is built around really well-functioning systems in which everything is running smoothly. And so your jobs are to keep those things running smoothly. And then when you wake up at a time like this and you look out and you're like, these things aren't working, the managers aren't actually skilled in those directions. That's where this is where leaders come in. Leaders take responsibility and inspire others to follow them. So leaders are the ones who go out and are setting a course and saying, hey, I think you ought to come with me. And the difference, of course, between the real sort of like elemental difference between leaders and managers, leaders are proactive and managers are reactive, is not found entirely in the leader themselves, but in the relationship of the leader to those they are leading. Because what a manager can do is a manager can say, here are the rules in this well-functioning system. And if you follow the rules, the system functions. So the manager can say, here's what you do, because they're told what the rules are, right? They can establish the rules, and the people who are managed can say, oh, here's what I do. You tell me what to do, and I go do it. But a leader can't tell you what to do because the leader is going off into the unknown. And so they're inspiring us to follow them into the unknown. So they can't promise what we can do. They can't tell us, they cannot prescribe any other action than to follow into the unknown, but they can promise something the manager will never promise. I will be with you. You come with me into the unknown, and we can build this thing together. In a moment when all this feels crumbly and insecure, people willing to take that leap are more important than ever. And it isn't just individuals willing to take the leap, but people willing to go too, right? So it's not just that a problem of the individual leader, right? We're used to being managed. We don't know how to be led. There's a brilliant TED Talk by Derek Sivers, who's been doing this bit for many years now, but he's been talking about first followers. And Seth Godin would name the first follower also as a leader, but that's another story, semantics. Sivers doesn't say that the most important person is the person who takes the leap. He names the second person, the first person to follow, the person who leads the followers into following the leader is actually the most important person in the equation. You see it in sort of social events that when one person does something, they're a loner and they're weird. When two people do it, suddenly it's something that people feel like, oh, people do that. It isn't the one person doing it, it's two people doing it together that prove to all other people that there is something worth going and participating in. So it isn't an issue of one person, it's actually begins with that second person. I want to name that not as following and not as leading in the old school definitions of it, but leading in the way that Seth Godin writes about it, which is the sort of sense of we need more of us to lead, more of us who are willing to step out into the unknown with one another, because we can't stay here. This status quo is not viable. Decline will inevitably decline. Growth requires new growth. It requires rebirth. It requires something new, right? I hope you hear all of the elements, the very familiar elements in this work, that it needs to go, that we need to move. We need to learn ourselves how to be led, not just managed. Anybody can manage, and anybody can be managed. Like it doesn't take a lot of skill. It doesn't take a lot of trust. It doesn't take a lot of work, right? And really, many people can manage better than you or me. So we have plenty of people who can manage, and we have plenty of people who can be managed. What we need are people who lead like you. We need you to lead like you. We need more of us to lead like us, that we can take these leaps together so that we can be and build and do what is really out there. We need more leaders. I hope you join me in that, right? In calling for one another, calling from our neighbors, from our friends, from our churches, from our groups, from our schools, from our leaders. We need more leaders. We need our leaders to be better leaders and less like managers. We need less of that and more of this. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time.